This video contains audio content only. There are no visual elements or images accompanying the audio. If you're expecting to see video footage, please note that this is an intentional audio-only presentation. We recommend listening to this content rather than watching the screen. Thank you for your understanding and enjoy the audio. Hello everyone, and welcome to today's video where we'll be diving into some fascinating scientific research about human evolution and diet. I'm excited to take you on a journey through time, exploring how what our ancestors ate shaped who we are today. We often hear the phrase, "You are what you eat," but have you ever considered how that applies not just to individuals, but to our entire species? Today, we're going to explore how diet has played a crucial role in human evolution, particularly in the development of our most distinctive feature, our large, complex brains. Over the next 45 minutes or so, we'll be covering several intriguing topics that shed light on our dietary past and its impact on our evolution. We'll look at early human diets and how they contributed to brain evolution, explore some surprising behaviors in our primate relatives, and examine evidence for how our ancestors adapted to life near water. We'll also touch on some controversial theories, discuss the nutritional benefits of certain foods that were important in our evolutionary history, and see how relatively recent changes in human diet might be affecting our health today. Whether you're a student, a health enthusiast, or just someone curious about human origins, I think you'll find today's topics fascinating. We'll be breaking down complex scientific concepts into digestible pieces, so don't worry if you don't have a background in anthropology or nutrition. This video is designed to be accessible to everyone. By the end of this video, you'll have a new perspective on how our ancient diet shaped our evolution, and how understanding our dietary past might help us make better choices for our health today. You might even look at your next meal a little differently. So, let's embark on this journey through human evolutionary history, focusing on one of the most fundamental aspects of life, food. Are you ready to explore how diet made us human? Let's dive in. 1. Early human diet and brain evolution. Let's start our journey around 2 million years ago, a critical period in human evolution. At this time, something remarkable was happening. Our ancestors' brains were beginning to grow at an unprecedented rate. But what was driving this change? Recent research has shed light on a crucial factor: a shift in diet. Our early ancestors, who had primarily been plant eaters like many primates today, began incorporating new foods into their diet, particularly meat and fish. This dietary change had profound implications for our evolution, especially for our brains. You see, our brains are extraordinarily demanding organs. Despite making up only about 2% of our body weight, they consume roughly 20% of our energy when we're at rest. That's a lot of fuel. And not just any fuel will do, our brains require specific nutrients to develop and function optimally. This is where the shift to consuming animal proteins, especially from aquatic sources, becomes crucial. Fish and shellfish are rich in nutrients that are essential for brain development and function. These include long-chain omega-3 fatty acids, particularly DHA, docosahexaenoic acid, as well as iodine, zinc, and other micronutrients. DHA is especially important. It's a major structural component of the brain, making up a significant portion of the fatty acids in our gray matter. Our bodies can produce some DHA from other fatty acids, but the process is inefficient. Getting DHA directly from the diet, particularly from fish, provides a much more reliable supply of this crucial brain-building material. Iodine, too, plays a vital role in brain development. It's essential for the production of thyroid hormones, which regulate metabolism and are crucial for brain development, especially in fetuses and infants. Seafood is one of the richest natural sources of iodine. But it wasn't just the nutrients themselves that were important, it was also their concentration. Aquatic foods provided these brain-boosting nutrients in quantities that would have been difficult or impossible to obtain from terrestrial plant foods alone. This nutrient-dense diet allowed our ancestors to fuel the energy-hungry process of evolving larger brains. The timeline of this dietary shift aligns intriguingly with major developments in human evolution. Around 2 million years ago, we see the emergence of Homo erectus, the first hominin species with a significantly larger brain relative to body size compared to its predecessors. This species also shows evidence of increased meat consumption and the use of more sophisticated stone tools. It's important to note that this wasn't a sudden, overnight change. The shift to a more varied diet, including aquatic resources, likely happened gradually over hundreds of thousands of years. Our ancestors probably started by opportunistically scavenging aquatic animals that had washed up on shores or been stranded in shallow waters. Over time, they may have developed more active strategies for obtaining these nutrient-rich foods. This dietary shift didn't just provide fuel for larger brains, it likely also drove the development of new cognitive abilities. Obtaining meat and fish often requires more complex behaviors than gathering plants. It may have spurred the development of better tools, more sophisticated hunting and fishing techniques, and increased social cooperation. All of these factors could have further accelerated cognitive evolution in a kind of positive feedback loop. Moreover, the reliable access to these nutrient-dense foods may have allowed for other important changes in human evolution. For example, it might have supported the evolution of larger body sizes, longer childhoods, allowing more time for learning and brain development, and eventually, the emergence of uniquely human cultural and technological innovations. In essence, the story of human brain evolution is inextricably linked with the story of our changing diet. By expanding their menu to include nutrient-dense foods like fish and meat, our ancestors unlocked the potential for extraordinary brain growth and cognitive development. This dietary shift set the stage for the emergence of the large-brained, culturally complex species we are today. As we continue our exploration of human dietary evolution, keep in mind this crucial period of change. The impact of this dietary shift echoes through human history and continues to influence our nutritional needs today. In our next segment, we'll look at some intriguing behaviors in our primate relatives that might give us clues about how this dietary transition began. 2. Primate aquatic foraging behavior. Now that we've explored how a shift to consuming aquatic resources might have fueled human brain evolution, let's take a step back and look at our closest living relatives, other primates. You might be surprised to learn that humans aren't the only primates with a taste for water-dwelling creatures. Recent research has revealed that over 30 species of primates interact with aquatic environments and consume aquatic foods. This is fascinating because it suggests that the use of aquatic resources isn't unique to humans, but may be a broader tendency within our evolutionary family. Let's start with some examples. Japanese macaques, those famous snow monkeys, often photographed bathing in hot springs, have been observed catching fish in streams. Long-tailed macaques in Thailand are known to forage for crabs and other shellfish along the coast. Even our closest relatives, chimpanzees, have been seen using tools to fish for algae in streams. But why are these primates venturing into the water for food? The answer likely lies in nutrition. Aquatic foods often provide important nutrients that may be scarce in terrestrial plant foods. For example, many aquatic animals are rich in protein, certain minerals, and fatty acids that are crucial for health and development. This aquatic foraging behavior is particularly interesting in females, juveniles, and infants. Researchers have observed that these groups seem to engage in aquatic foraging more frequently than adult males. This could be because females have higher nutritional demands, especially during pregnancy and lactation, while growing juveniles and infants need extra nutrients to support their development. One particularly intriguing example comes from bonobos in the Congo Basin. Adult female bonobos have been observed regularly consuming aquatic herbs. These herbs are rich in iodine, an essential nutrient for brain development. By seeking out these iodine-rich foods, female bonobos may be supporting the brain development of their offspring. This behavior in other primates offers us a window into how our own ancestors might have begun incorporating aquatic foods into their diet. It suggests that the initial shift might not have been a uniquely human innovation, but rather an extension of behaviors that were already present in our evolutionary lineage. Moreover, these observations challenge the idea that primates, including our ancestors, were strictly adapted to life in the trees or on land. Instead, they suggest a level of flexibility and opportunism in primate foraging behavior. This adaptability may have been a key factor in allowing our ancestors to exploit new food sources as they became available. It's important to note that while these behaviors are fascinating, they're not identical to the systematic exploitation of aquatic resources that we see in human evolution. Most primates use aquatic foods as a supplement to their primarily plant-based diets, not as a staple food source. Nonetheless, these behaviors might represent an evolutionary precursor to the more intensive use of aquatic resources that we see in human evolution. These observations also raise interesting questions about the cognitive abilities required for aquatic foraging. Catching fish or extracting shellfish often requires problem-solving skills and tool use. The fact that multiple primate species have developed these skills independently suggests that our primate brains may be particularly well suited to this kind of adaptive, flexible foraging behavior. Understanding these behaviors in other primates not only gives us insight into our evolutionary past, but also highlights the importance of protecting diverse habitats. Many primate species rely on both terrestrial and aquatic environments for their nutritional needs. As we think about conservation efforts, it's crucial to consider the full range of habitats that support primate life. In our next segment, we'll move back to human evolution and look at some of the evidence for early human coastal and aquatic adaptations. As we do, keep in mind these examples from other primates. They remind us that our ancestors' shift towards aquatic resources wasn't a complete departure from primate norms, but perhaps an intensification of tendencies that were already present in our evolutionary family. 3. Evidence for early human coastal, aquatic adaptations. As we continue our journey through human dietary evolution, let's now turn our attention to the evidence for early human coastal and aquatic adaptations. This is a fascinating area of research that combines archaeological findings with studies of human anatomy and physiology. Let's start with the archaeological evidence. One of the most exciting discoveries in recent years has been the identification of very early evidence for shellfish consumption by human ancestors. At a site in South Africa, researchers have found evidence of shellfish consumption dating back to approximately 160,000 years ago. This is much earlier than many scientists previously thought humans were exploiting marine resources. But it's not just shellfish. At various archaeological sites around the world, researchers have found evidence of early humans consuming a wide variety of aquatic resources, including fish, seabirds, and even sea mammals. These findings suggest that coastal and aquatic environments were important habitats for our ancestors, providing rich sources of food. Interestingly, many important archaeological sites from the early days of our species are located near ancient coastlines or major water bodies. This distribution isn't random. It suggests that these environments played a crucial role in human dispersal and survival. But the evidence for human aquatic adaptations isn't just in the archaeological record, it's also written in our bodies. Several features of human anatomy and physiology have been suggested as possible adaptations to a more aquatic lifestyle. One of the most often cited is our subcutaneous fat layer. Humans have a layer of fat just beneath the skin that's unusual among primates. This fat layer is similar to the blubber found in aquatic mammals, and it's been suggested that it could have evolved as an adaptation to spending time in water, helping to keep our ancestors warm. Another interesting feature is the human diving response. When we submerge our faces in water, our heart rate slows down and blood flow is redirected to vital organs. This response is particularly strong in human infants, who can reflexively hold their breath underwater. Some researchers have suggested that this could be a remnant of a more aquatic phase in our evolutionary past. There are other, more subtle features too. The shape of our nose, with nostrils that point downward, has been suggested as an adaptation to keep water out when diving. Our hairless bodies and upright posture have also been cited as potentially aquatic adaptations, making us more streamlined in water. It's important to note that while these features are intriguing, their interpretation is not without controversy. Many of these traits can be explained by other evolutionary pressures, and the idea that humans went through a fully aquatic stage in our evolution, known as the aquatic ape hypothesis, is not widely accepted by mainstream anthropologists. However, what is becoming increasingly clear is that coastal and aquatic environments played a significant role in human evolution, even if we weren't fully aquatic. These environments provided rich, reliable food sources that may have been crucial for supporting growing populations and fueling brain growth. Moreover, coastlines may have served as important migration routes for early humans. As our ancestors spread out of Africa and around the world, coastlines would have provided a predictable source of food and fresh water. This coastal migration hypothesis suggests that many early human migrations may have followed coastlines, allowing our species to rapidly spread across the globe. The exploitation of aquatic resources also likely drove technological innovations. Fishing and seafood gathering often required tools and techniques different from those used for hunting land animals or gathering plants. The cognitive challenges involved in developing these new technologies may have further spurred brain development. As we consider this evidence, it's important to remember that human evolution didn't follow a single, linear path. Different populations of early humans likely adapted to their local environments in different ways. Coastal adaptations may have been more important in some regions than others, and the degree of reliance on aquatic resources probably varied over time and space. Nonetheless, the growing body of evidence for early human use of aquatic resources is reshaping our understanding of human evolution. It suggests a more diverse, flexible picture of early human diets and lifestyles than was previously recognized. In our next segment, we'll dive into a controversial theory that takes the idea of human aquatic adaptations to an extreme, the aquatic ape hypothesis. While not widely accepted, this hypothesis has stimulated interesting debates and research in the field of human evolution. 4. Debate around aquatic ape hypothesis. Now, let's wade into some controversial waters and explore a theory that has sparked heated debate in the field of human evolution: the aquatic ape hypothesis, or AWH. While not widely accepted in the scientific community, this hypothesis has stimulated interesting discussions about human evolution and the role of aquatic environments in our past. The aquatic ape hypothesis suggests that many distinctive human traits evolved as adaptations to a semi-aquatic lifestyle. According to this idea, there was a period in our evolutionary history when our ancestors spent a significant amount of time in and around water, leading to adaptations similar to those seen in other aquatic or semi-aquatic mammals. This hypothesis was first proposed in 1960 by marine biologist Alister Hardy, and later popularized by writer Elaine Morgan. Proponents of the AWH argue that it can explain several human traits that are unusual among primates. For instance, they point to our relative hairlessness, which they suggest makes us more streamlined in water. They also highlight our subcutaneous fat layer, similar to the blubber of aquatic mammals, and our upright posture, which they argue is advantageous for wading. Supporters of the AWH also link our larger brains to the consumption of seafood rich in brain-building nutrients. They point out our ability to control our breathing, which is unusual among mammals and could be useful for diving, and the human diving reflex, which is particularly strong in infants. These traits, they argue, are better explained by an aquatic phase in our evolution than by other proposed scenarios, such as adaptation to savanna environments. However, it's important to note that the aquatic ape hypothesis is not accepted by most anthropologists and evolutionary biologists. Critics of the hypothesis point out several issues. First and foremost, there's a glaring lack of fossil evidence. We simply haven't found any clear fossil evidence of a predominantly aquatic phase in human evolution. Critics also argue that AWH proponents tend to cherry-pick human traits that fit their hypothesis while ignoring those that don't. They suggest that the hypothesis oversimplifies a complex process, proposing a single explanation for a wide range of human traits. Most scientists believe human evolution was shaped by multiple, complex factors, not a single environmental influence. Moreover, many of the traits cited by AWH proponents can be explained by other evolutionary scenarios that have more supporting evidence. Critics argue that the AWH sometimes misrepresents how evolutionary adaptations develop, failing to account for the gradual nature of evolutionary change. Despite these criticisms, the debate around the aquatic ape hypothesis has had some positive impacts on the field of human evolution. It has stimulated research into the role of aquatic resources in human evolution and encouraged scientists to think more broadly about the environments that may have shaped our ancestors. While a fully aquatic stage in human evolution is not supported by current evidence, there is growing recognition that waterside environments and aquatic foods likely played an important role in human evolution. This more nuanced view acknowledges the importance of aquatic resources without requiring a fully aquatic phase in our evolutionary past. The debate around the AW also highlights some important principles in scientific research. It underscores the importance of evidence in science. Ideas need to be supported by observable evidence to gain acceptance. It also demonstrates the value of debate in scientific progress. Even controversial ideas can stimulate valuable research and discussion, pushing the boundaries of our understanding. Furthermore, this debate reminds us of the complexity of evolution. Simple, single-factor explanations are rarely sufficient to explain complex evolutionary processes. It emphasizes the need for multiple working hypotheses in studying the past. When dealing with events millions of years ago, it's often valuable to consider multiple possible explanations rather than becoming too attached to a single idea. While the aquatic ape hypothesis itself is not widely accepted, the broader recognition of the importance of aquatic environments and resources in human evolution has become an important area of research. It's a testament to how even controversial ideas can lead to valuable scientific insights, pushing us to look at old questions in new ways. In our next segment, we'll move away from this controversial theory and explore something more broadly accepted: the nutritional benefits of aquatic and marine foods, and how these might have impacted human evolution. This is an area where the influence of waterside environments on our evolutionary past becomes much clearer. 5. Nutritional benefits of aquatic, marine foods. Now that we've explored some of the theories and debates surrounding human aquatic adaptations, let's dive into an area where the evidence is much clearer: the nutritional benefits of aquatic and marine foods. These foods played a crucial role in human evolution, providing key nutrients that were essential for our developing brains and bodies. When we look at the nutritional profile of fish, shellfish, and other aquatic animals, we see a treasure trove of nutrients that are particularly important for brain development and function. Let's start with omega-3 fatty acids, particularly DHA, docosahexaenoic acid. DHA is a crucial component of brain tissue, making up a significant portion of the fatty acids in our gray matter. Our bodies can produce some DHA from other fatty acids, but the process is inefficient. Getting DHA directly from the diet, particularly from fish and other seafood, provides a much more reliable supply of this crucial brain-building material. In fact, some researchers have suggested that access to DHA-rich foods was a key factor enabling the dramatic increase in brain size that occurred during human evolution. But omega-3s aren't the only brain-boosting nutrient found in abundance in aquatic foods. Iodine, for instance, is critical for thyroid function and brain development. In many parts of the world, seafood is one of the richest natural sources of iodine. A lack of iodine can lead to serious cognitive impairments, highlighting how crucial this nutrient is for brain function. Zinc is another mineral found in high concentrations in many types of seafood, particularly oysters. Zinc plays a role in neurotransmitter function and is important for memory formation and cognitive stability. It's also crucial for immune function, potentially giving our seafood-eating ancestors an edge in fighting off diseases. Aquatic foods are also rich in high-quality proteins and other essential nutrients like vitamin D, vitamin B12, and selenium. This nutritional density means that even small amounts of these foods can have a significant impact on overall diet quality. What's particularly interesting is that many of these nutrients are not easily obtained from terrestrial plant or animal sources, at least not in the same concentrations. This suggests that access to aquatic food resources may have provided our ancestors with a unique nutritional advantage. Consider, for example, the challenge of getting enough DHA from a purely terrestrial diet. While some land animals do contain DHA, the levels are generally much lower than in fish and seafood. Plants don't produce DHA at all, although some do produce other omega-3 fatty acids that our bodies can convert to DHA, albeit inefficiently. This nutritional uniqueness of aquatic foods may help explain why we see evidence of coastal and riverside settlements throughout human history. These locations would have provided access to both terrestrial and aquatic food resources, offering a more diverse and nutritionally complete diet. The nutritional benefits of aquatic foods aren't just important from an evolutionary perspective, they continue to be crucial for human health today. Many health organizations recommend regular consumption of fish and seafood as part of a healthy diet, largely due to their omega-3 content and overall nutritional profile. In fact, some researchers have suggested that the shift away from aquatic foods in many modern diets may be contributing to various health issues. The ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acids in many Western diets is much higher than what's thought to be optimal, potentially contributing to inflammation and related health problems. It's worth noting that not all aquatic foods are created equal from a nutritional perspective. Cold water fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, and sardines are particularly rich in omega-3s, while shellfish are often high in zinc and other minerals. Seaweeds, which have been part of coastal diets in many parts of the world for thousands of years, are rich in iodine and other minerals. The nutritional benefits of aquatic foods also extend beyond just the nutrients they contain. Many types of seafood are relatively low in saturated fats compared to land animal meats, potentially offering cardiovascular benefits. Additionally, the act of procuring these foods, whether through fishing, gathering shellfish, or harvesting seaweed, often involves physical activity and skill development, which have their own health and cognitive benefits. As we think about the role of aquatic foods in human evolution, it's important to consider not just the direct nutritional benefits, but also how the reliable access to these nutrient-dense foods might have shaped our species in other ways. Did it allow for longer childhoods and extended periods of learning? Did it free up time for social interaction and cultural development? Did it drive the development of new technologies and cognitive skills? These are complex questions without easy answers, but they highlight how something as seemingly simple as a change in diet can have far-reaching implications for a species' evolution. In our next segment, we'll explore how relatively recent changes in human diet, particularly the shift from hunter-gatherer lifestyles to agriculture, have impacted our health and continue to shape our evolution today. 6. Shift from hunter-gatherer to agricultural diets. As we continue our journey through human dietary evolution, we come to a pivotal moment in our species' history, the transition from hunter-gatherer lifestyles to agriculture. This shift, which began around 10,000 years ago in various parts of the world, represents one of the most significant changes in human dietary patterns since our species emerged. For millions of years, our ancestors lived as hunter-gatherers, obtaining their food through a combination of hunting wild animals, fishing, and gathering wild plants. This lifestyle provided a diverse diet that was well suited to our evolutionary needs. But around 10,000 years ago, something changed. In different parts of the world, humans began to cultivate crops and domesticate animals, marking the beginning of agriculture. This transition to agriculture, often called the Neolithic Revolution, had profound implications for human society. It allowed for larger, more stable populations and the development of complex civilizations. But it also had significant impacts on human diet and health, many of which we're still grappling with today. One of the most immediate effects of the shift to agriculture was a reduction in dietary diversity. Hunter-gatherer diets typically included a wide variety of plant and animal foods, changing with the seasons and local availability. In contrast, early agricultural diets often relied heavily on a small number of staple crops, things like wheat, rice, or maize, depending on the region. This decrease in dietary diversity had nutritional consequences. Many of the staple crops that formed the basis of early agricultural diets were less nutrient-dense than the diverse array of foods consumed by hunter-gatherers. For example, cereal grains, while providing plenty of calories, are relatively poor sources of some vitamins and minerals compared to fruits, vegetables, and animal foods. Moreover, the shift to agriculture often meant a reduction in the consumption of animal proteins, including fish and other aquatic resources. Remember those brain-boosting nutrients we talked about earlier, like omega-3 fatty acids and certain minerals? Many of these became less abundant in human diets with the advent of agriculture. The consequences of this dietary shift are visible in the archaeological record. When we look at skeletal remains from early agricultural societies, we often see signs of nutritional stress that were less common in hunter-gatherer populations. These include shorter stature, more dental cavities, and signs of specific nutrient deficiencies. But it wasn't all bad news. Agriculture allowed for a more reliable food supply, which was crucial for supporting larger populations. It also led to the development of new foods through crop domestication and breeding. Some of these new plant varieties were more nutritious or easier to digest than their wild counterparts. The agricultural revolution also set the stage for another major shift in human diets: the ability to process and store foods. Techniques like grinding grains, fermenting foods, and using heat to cook and preserve food all became more common with the advent of agriculture. These techniques often made nutrients more available and foods safer to eat, but they also paved the way for more extensive food processing in later periods. It's important to note that the transition to agriculture didn't happen overnight, nor did it happen in the same way everywhere. In many parts of the world, there was a long period of transition where people combined farming with hunting and gathering. Some populations never fully transitioned to agriculture, maintaining traditional hunting and gathering practices to this day. The effects of the agricultural revolution on human health and evolution are still debated by scientists. On one hand, agriculture allowed for larger populations and more complex societies, which drove cultural and technological innovations. On the other hand, the nutritional quality of diets often decreased, at least initially, leading to new health challenges. From an evolutionary perspective, the shift to agriculture represents a major change in the selective pressures acting on our species. Suddenly, the ability to digest certain foods, particularly starch-rich crops and dairy products from domesticated animals, became advantageous in many populations. This led to genetic adaptations, such as increased copy numbers of the AMY1 gene, which produces salivary amylase for starch digestion in agricultural populations. Perhaps the most famous example of genetic adaptation to agriculture is lactase persistence, the ability to digest milk into adulthood. This trait, which is common in populations with a long history of dairy farming, is a clear example of how cultural practices, in this case, dairy farming, can drive biological evolution. The shift to agriculture also had profound effects on our gut microbiome, the community of microorganisms that live in our digestive tract. The change in diet likely led to changes in the composition of this microbial community, with potential impacts on our digestion, immune function, and even our brain health. As we reflect on this major transition in human dietary history, it's important to recognize that our current nutritional needs are shaped by millions of years of evolution as hunter-gatherers, as well as by more recent adaptations to agricultural diets. This complex evolutionary history helps explain why nutrition can be such a confusing topic. Our bodies are adapted to dietary conditions that, in many ways, no longer exist. In our final segment, we'll bring our journey up to the present day, exploring how humans are still evolving in response to dietary changes, and what our evolutionary history can tell us about optimal nutrition in the modern world. 7. Ongoing human dietary evolution and health. As we reach the final chapter of our journey through human dietary evolution, let's bring our story up to the present day and even peer a bit into the future. You might think that human evolution is a thing of the past, something that happened millions of years ago. But the truth is, evolution is an ongoing process, and humans are continuing to evolve today, including in response to our diets. One of the most striking examples of recent human evolution related to diet is the continued spread of lactase persistence, the ability to digest milk into adulthood. This trait, which we touched on earlier, has evolved independently in several populations around the world over the last few thousand years. It's a powerful example of how cultural practices, in this case, dairy farming, can drive biological evolution. But lactase persistence isn't the only example of ongoing dietary adaptation in humans. Researchers have identified a number of other genetic variations related to diet that differ among human populations. For instance, some populations have genetic adaptations that allow them to more efficiently process high-fat diets, likely an adaptation to traditional diets rich in marine mammals. These ongoing adaptations highlight an important point: there isn't one natural human diet. Different populations have adapted to different dietary conditions over thousands of years. This helps explain why some dietary practices that are healthy for one population might not be ideal for another. However, the pace of cultural and technological change has far outstripped the pace of biological evolution in recent centuries. The Industrial Revolution and globalization have transformed human diets more rapidly and dramatically than ever before in our species' history. Many people today eat diets that bear little resemblance to anything our ancestors consumed. whether in the Paleolithic era or in more recent agricultural societies. This mismatch between our evolutionary heritage and our modern diets is thought to contribute to many of the health challenges we face today. Obesity, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and certain cancers are all more common in populations consuming modern, processed diets than in those maintaining more traditional ways of eating. Part of the problem is that many modern processed foods are engineered to appeal to evolutionary preferences that once served us well. We have an innate preference for sweet, fatty, and salty foods because these tastes signaled calorie-dense, nutritious foods in our ancestral environments. But in a world of unlimited Doritos and Ben & Jerry's, these preferences can lead us astray. Another issue is the sheer abundance of food in many parts of the world today. For most of human history, periodic food scarcity was a fact of life. Our bodies evolved mechanisms to store energy efficiently and to motivate us to eat when food was available. In environments where calorie-dense foods are always available, these once adaptive traits can contribute to overeating and obesity. The loss of dietary diversity in many modern diets is another concern. While a typical hunter-gatherer might have consumed over 100 different species of plants and animals over the course of a year, many people today get most of their calories from a handful of species: wheat, rice, corn, and a few types of domestic animals. This loss of dietary diversity may mean we're missing out on important nutrients and beneficial compounds found in a more varied diet. So, what can we learn from our evolutionary history to guide our food choices today? While we can't, and shouldn't try to, exactly replicate the diets of our ancestors, there are some lessons we can take away. Diversity is key. Our ancestors, whether hunter-gatherers or early agriculturalists, typically ate a more diverse diet than many of us do today. Incorporating a wide variety of whole foods in our diets can help ensure we're getting all the nutrients we need. Whole foods are generally better than highly processed ones. While humans have been processing foods in various ways for thousands of years, the ultra-processed foods that make up a large part of many modern diets are a very recent invention. These foods often lack the fiber, micronutrients, and beneficial plant compounds found in whole foods. Don't forget seafood. Given the important role that aquatic foods seem to have played in human brain evolution, it's worth ensuring that fish and other seafood are part of our diets today. They remain excellent sources of those brain-boosting nutrients we talked about earlier. Consider your heritage. Given the genetic adaptations that have occurred in different populations, the optimal diet for you might be influenced by your ancestry. This is an emerging area of research that may lead to more personalized nutrition recommendations in the future. Remember, there's no one natural human diet. Our species' success has been built on dietary flexibility and adaptability. The goal isn't to mimic a specific ancestral diet, but to learn from our evolutionary history as we navigate the modern food environment. As we wrap up our journey through human dietary evolution, I hope you've gained a new perspective on the food on your plate. Our dietary choices today are influenced by millions of years of evolution, thousands of years of culture, and the very recent changes brought about by industrialization and globalization. Understanding this complex history can help us make more informed choices about what we eat and how we approach nutrition. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of human dietary evolution. Remember, every meal is an opportunity to nourish your body in alignment with your evolutionary heritage while also embracing the amazing diversity of foods available to us today. Here's to eating well, in every sense of the word.